Hello, everyone. It's Ashley. Welcome to our Lunch and Learn series today. It's all about how to help you cut payments, make more revenue in 2026. I'm joined today by Oswin and Johnny from our customer success team, and we're really excited about what we're going to teach you guys today. So, thanks for being a part of our new Lunch and Learn series. Again, this is to be a short, less than 30-minute call to teach you some high level things in the system. But before we get started, we want to tell you some upcoming things. We've got another club pickleball mastermind coming up in March. If you are anything pickleball, you can go to clubpickleballmastermind.com. You can book a call with Devin, find out why pickleball clubs are going and spending 3 days in Utah to learn everything about pickleball. Not only do I love the conference, I've learned so much to use at Old Coast Pickleball, but it's the monthly Zoom calls and the network of pickleballers that now I have an opportunity to learn from. But if there's something I really want you to do, it is literally to get signed up for our first Catalyst of the year. It's going to be here in St. Augustine. We're going to have it here at Old Coast Pickleball. We're going to do a first half day of roundtables. We already have 16 organizations coming and a full day of teaching. So the first half day starts at 1 o'clock. It's 4 hours of roundtables, best practices. What are you doing that's working at your facility? It's pickleball, it's tennis, it's how to do everything. And then the second day is a full day of Catalyst teaching. So we still have some seats available because it's literally coming up at the end of the month. So you can go out to CourtReserve, find Catalyst, or come into our customer support folks, and they can give you those links as well. And I'll put them in the chat here today. Don't forget that if you have questions, you can put those in the Q&A channel, and Johnny's going to help Oswin with any of those written questions, or we can talk through them once Oswin gets completely done with all of his teaching. But let's go ahead and get started.
Alrighty, so I'm going to share my screen here real quick, and we're going to go over basically ways that you can reduce the credit card fee transactions that you are paying. And so we've got a few different ways that you can do that or utilize our system to reduce on those fees. So we're going to go over a few of them. There's 5 in total. We're going to talk about preloaded credits. We're going to talk about utilizing packages, advising or allowing players to create e-check payment profiles, convenience fees, and finally batch billing. Batch billing is going to be the largest of that, so we're going to save that portion for last, and we're going to dive in with preloaded account credits. Johnny, can you let me know if my screen is showing properly?
Yep, looks good.
Looks good. All right, so we're going to get into preloaded credits and why you might use these. So preloaded credits are pretty much going to a member's profile and suggesting or offering to take a credit card payment in advance to load credit onto their account. It doesn't have to be a credit card. It could be cash. It could be e-check. It could be check. So this button right here, preload credit, is the button that you would want to use. Anybody that comes in frequently to your club, you might want to encourage this particular practice. Hey, load some money on your account. You can use it for the rest of the month. You just go in. It saves you a little bit of time. You're paying with account credit as opposed to actual credit card or e-check. So to use a preloaded credit, you go to the desired user's account, you select the preloaded credit option, and then you can select a payment type. So if they have payment type set up, like for example, this user doesn't have a credit card set up, I'll go to one that does at a different site. So let's go to Oswin over here. And so I'm going to preload this credit. I can choose the credit card that they have on file. I can say for the amount that they're loading in advance, so $100 credit. And this way, we're only nicked on the processing fee once as our payment provider takes that. And now suddenly we have $105 of credit. The member can then use that amount, and anytime they use that amount, there's going to be no credit card processing fee on that amount. So instead of a couple different $20 lessons or $20 events, we instead got nicked once on the $100, and they're paying the rest via their account credit. So frequent flyers, it's good for them. Family bookings that book multiple courts each week, especially if you have like high schools or corporations that might do bookings with your account or with your courts. You're going to want to, hey, use this preload credit option. There are other ways that you can work out contract time. If you have questions about those, I would actually suggest reaching out to our support. We'd be happy to help or show you how to set something like that up, so that it's a little bit separate or different than your typical online booking. And that way you can just reduce on those fees overall. So next we're going to go into, I'm going to do convenience fees first, actually. So convenience fees, you'll want to check with your state and local laws regarding what your convenience fee, what you're allowed to charge for convenience fees. But in the integrated payment section, you're going to be able to use the enable convenience fee button. From here, it lets you know by law that convenience fees may not be applied to transactions using a card terminal they're present at, so they're bringing that to a manual swipe, and they'll only be applied to purchases made online using the member portal or using the card on file. So if you agree to that above disclosure, you can apply convenience fees to credit card transactions that are made online and when they make them through the member portal. This can be used to make up some of that transaction fee that you're experiencing with your payment provider. And it's active on all of those online payments. You can also make them apply only when paying an invoice. And we'll get to the invoice section when we discuss batch billing a little bit. There's an option for choosing percentage, and you can have a revenue category as well so that you can identify later in your sales summary reports how much revenue you're specifically making on the convenience fees themselves. So you can see how much you make without the convenience fees and how much you're making with the convenience fee to see if it's making up or adding value to your organization. Next, we're going to get into e-check payment profiles. So e-check payment profiles, let's see here. In the settings section, portal settings here. Actually, I believe it's integrated payments. Should really double check that. So we allow players to create an e-check payment profile. Turning this on in your organization will allow the member to head into their member portal and go to their billing profiles and create an e-check. So what that looks like is going to be over here in their billing and payment profiles. When they set up an e-check, you'll see a little bit difference in type. It'll just state e-check. They will do an account and routing number when they're setting up their profile, and there'll be a little verification. They'll have an e-check payment profile, and e-check payments tend to have lower transaction fees when running through your payment provider, and thus, again, reducing the amount that you're actually paying in those transaction fees. So they're good to use for membership dues. They're good for, again, regular weekly players and high volume billing scenarios. So again, if you have corporations, if you have people booking large party events or buying out month like slots like every day of, not every day of the week, but once a week for a couple months, like they buy out a summer. It's better if they have those e-check profiles set up because you're going to experience reduced costs when they're going to be using those payment profiles. They can be set up to be the preferred method as well. So if they have multiple on there, they can be set to be the preferred payment provider method. And then again, when we get to batch billing, there is a section where it's going to choose whether to look at an e-check first or a credit card first in order to charge that particular payment profile. So if they have an e-check on file, it would charge the e-check as opposed to the credit card. Okay. Now we're going to get into packages themselves. So packages make it a little bit more complicated, but with setting up a lot of packages, you can reduce costs similar to preloading credits. So the preloaded credit scenario, somebody comes in, loads 100, loads 1,000, however much they want, and then they can just use that on anything. The packages setup can be set up in multiple ways in which you either expose to the member portal saying, hey, you can go in and buy this package at any time, and it gives you 4 open plays at maybe like $5 off. In which case that might be more valuable to you than charging full price because you won't get nicked on any of the credit card processing fees. So I have a demo package right here set up for Site A, $250. When we go in and we look at this, it's set up as a lesson package. So my recommendation would be to utilize these for anything that really reoccurs in your organization. If you have open plays, open play packages are great to utilize. A lot of organizations experience people who come in for open play and they cycle in and rotate. They're paying drop-in prices every time. And so you're getting nicked $10, $15, $20, whatever the drop-in price may be for that member, where instead you could sell them a 4-pack, a 6-pack, at a higher value once, and then they go in and they pay with a punch every time. So that way you're reducing heavily on those fees for especially those frequent players. Um, so in this particular case, we have private lesson site A. It's at 60 minutes duration and it's one punch value. You can set these up for multiple different sets for court time. So anytime they're making a reservation type. So you'll have the different reservation types that appear here, and you can set one for singles, for example, for 60 minutes. The key with packages is to make sure that you've set up enough with them so that when the player is booking, that they are, no matter what duration they might be selecting, that punch is still there. Because if I only set up a 60-minute duration with one punch, if the customer goes ahead and books an hour and 30, that punch will no longer work for them. So I want to make sure that I have all of my durations set up and all of my different court or eligible types. So if I want singles A and doubles A to work for an hour, I need to make sure that I'm selected them. You can always update them later. And again, if you have any issues when setting up something like this, always feel free to reach out to our support. We're more than happy to help you get a little bit configured with setting up packages and how to update them after you've made one. So this is a great tool to use. We're going to talk about tax. Let's look about tax rates. So you can set revenue categories for these. You can set start and expire dates as well. And more importantly is you can set this to be sold on the portal and the app so that people don't have to come to the admin or front desk staff in order to actually purchase these. So exposing them to the member portal, members can go in and go, oh, I see there's an open play package deal. I save like $5 or $10 if I buy 4 in 1. And you can set them to like, you can have a summer pass, you can have a winter pass, you can do kind of like a monthly setup or a monthly deal in which you choose when the windows that they can purchase those. So you can have them, before February or something like that. We can say, hey, from January 15th to January 31st, you can purchase this particular package, and it's going to go ahead and start on February 1st. And then players can essentially use those punches. And again, it's that one transaction. They're going to be splitting those punches out through the month where you're not getting hit with credit card transaction fees or e-check transaction fees. Okay. One disclaimer I want to point out with event categories is the event for punches. It only works for drop-in events. It's not going to work for a full event registration. So if you're running full events that reoccur and they try and do a full event, the package system doesn't apply to that. It's only going to be for those drop-in days. So it'll work for reservations, lessons, and drop-in events. I highly recommend using all three, and it can very much reduce the amount of fees that you're paying. Now we're going to go ahead and get into batch billing. So batch billing is the biggest aspect of saving on transaction fees back and forth. We're going to start with the overall, like to create batch billing, and then we'll break it into like a user or individual user. So turning on batch billing with the Grow plan and up has no additional cost, so you can utilize batch billing as an add-on. And what it's going to let you do is it's going to let you invoice for a collection of fees as opposed to running each individual fee by itself. And we're able to target a few specific things so that we don't have to do this for everything. Like, it would be great if you as an organization can say, hey, we're going to put off all revenue till the end of the month, every month, because, we can afford it. We don't need any of the costs coming in until the end of the month. And if you're able to do that, it can be great because you can reduce the fees, but not everyone is able to do that. Sometimes you need the incoming revenue throughout the month. And what you can do here is you can say, hey, maybe I only want to do this for my premium members. So I'm going to select location A, premium members. And if we want to go even further than that, we can say only by a particular revenue category. So our premium members, their regular court bookings. We can charge or invoice their regular court bookings at the end of the month, every month. Or we could do their point of sale transactions. It's pretty good to go in and let's see if I have a revenue category for one. I actually don't at the moment. But I know, for example, Osmond down here has two particular charges, or three particular charges on his account for point of sale items. And maybe I only want to charge those point of sale items. I would build a revenue category for like drinks, paddles, anything that I sold out of my retail store. And I'm going to charge those at the end of the week or the end of the month. So that way, when Oswin comes in every week and he's buying, an orange soda at the end of the day or a blue Gatorade if it shows through the filter, I don't run a $3 transaction every time. I just wait until the end of the month or the end of the week, and then I charge it all at once. So what that looks like on an individual basis, when we're looking at the billing here, we go to transactions. Right now I have one point of sale item for 1865. So paying this right now, I would get dinged on that 1865 transaction. If I added another fee in here for 15, say do some taxes, I'll leave a revenue category off it. Now when I go to batch bill, me in particular, I can collect the full 3510. So let's go back and let's go ahead and refresh this. So now we have that 3510. And when we run and include this account in the batch, we are generating an invoice for all of them. And I'll generate it real quick. And just to note, anytime, this is a small org, so it takes no time at all, but you can leave this page. If it looks like it's timing out, it's probably just taking a minute. You can refresh, step away, leave. There's always the ability to go back to click on the batch billing. And if it's still going, it'll bring you right back to that page. If it's no longer going, it'll appear right in this list. And it'll have all of the features that you've selected here. So if you ever have any doubt of what you selected or what you ran, you can go back and take a look and say, oh, I ran it for all memberships. I ran it through a certain date. If you leave some of the fields blank, they don't appear. But if you choose any particular dates, like transactions through date, I said, hey, run all transactions through 1/5, and that appeared on that list. And in here, I left it blank. So it just did all transactions. So what that looks like, let's see here. We can go to a particular set of invoices and we can see here are all the folks that are pending payment. And I can view the breakdown of that particular invoice. I can view the invoice itself and see an invoice breakdown further. And I can also, oh, I double clicked it. Here we go. It's loaded. It's trying. There we go. So we can see the breakdown of the point of sale items and the example miscellaneous fee. We can also pay these. So if somebody comes in and says, hey, can I pay my invoice? You can pay it right here. And that's collecting both of these fees in one transaction, reducing the credit card fees. So the longer you can delay the collection, the less transaction fees you'll experience. And like I said, it's great to do for small items. Batch billing has a particular setting that lets you ignore amounts smaller than X. So if I'm running it month after month, so let's say we don't care if you have a $50 or less balance. So we can select that and then run our batch bill. And once you pass $50, you'll get billed in the next month or the next period in which that we run that batch billing. So that way you can save on getting nicked for those small particular fees. If you do things like that, it's always a good idea to keep an eye on your aged fees report as well, just to make sure that anybody who is past due any particular amount, like say somebody spent $40 at your club and they just never show up again, you're giving them $40 for free essentially if you just follow $50 smaller after a certain amount. So it's a good idea to pay attention to your aged fees and your batch billing if you're excluding small amounts. Additionally, we're talking a little bit more about the payment profile priority. It's by default set to e-check. So if they have an e-check payment profile, it will run it. If they don't have the e-check, that's okay. It will still run the CC on file. You'll also notice there's payment profile statuses here of no payment profile. When utilizing or focusing on batch billing to reduce fees, they're going to want to make sure that you require having a payment profile at your organization, at least at the membership level. So you may not charge the like your free members or your free members, sorry, you may not charge for their membership, but you require them all to pay up front. And so you may not require them to have the payment profile on there because anytime they go do something, they have to pay upfront anyway. Whereas your premium members or your people who are loyal customers, frequent returners, you might set up so the membership requires the payment profile on file, and thus anytime you go to run them, like Premium A, like I can see this person has no payment profile, so I might want to have a conversation with them or reach out and be like, hey, you don't currently have a payment profile on. We suggest adding it for this membership type. You'll be able to follow up with any of those individuals. And like I said, you can require those payment profiles when they create their account, either via the sign up form or at the membership level when you're building out memberships. You can set in on the portal settings that they require payment profiles when booking courts online. Okay, so, and I'm a little over time, but there is one other section that I want to mention with batch billing, is that you do not have to do it in a large batch either. You can do it on an individual basis, and you can also circumvent batch billing to pay multiple fees at once. So one thing I can do is I can use the generate invoice feature on individual accounts when I've turned batch billing on. This gives me a much smaller version of what we saw on the create batch. It allows me to select transactions through a certain date. So I could choose a date in the past, or I can choose reservation and event registrations through a certain date. This can be a little bit misleading. This essentially means service date. So if I book a lesson for 117, and the fee gets applied to me today on 115. If I run transactions through 114, that fee wouldn't show up. If I ran it through 115, that fee would show up. But let's say I don't want to charge them just yet. I would rather only pick up that charge later. I might run reservations and events through 115. And that way, that charge, I haven't participated in that service yet, so it's not going to hit my account. So if I booked that for 117 and I wanted to pick that up, I would select 117 or a date beyond that, and it would pick that up. You'll also notice I have invoice due date. The invoice due date doesn't actually affect anything within your system. It's going to note, like it's not going to give them a punisher or, hey, it will mark the account as past due, but it won't do anything in addition to that under the invoice section. It can be basically for the email to let the player know that you will be running the invoices or collecting payments after 5 days. So we can generate invoice and collect. So let's say it's 0. We're just going to run this and collect right there. We can also apply account credit if they happen to have it on there, and we can run and save this. So that will collect it. I'm not going to do that for one more additional example here. Is if I don't use batch billing, but I still want to save on a collection of fees, I can still do that by selecting pay and adding additional items to my payment summary here. So this is an admin side feature here. The member isn't going, they can go to their side and collect pay and select all of them as well, but they could also just as easily pay each individual one. Want to avoid doing that? Batch billing is a good way to avoid doing that, letting them know, hey, don't pay anything up front. We're going to collect it at the end of the month. So we can add our unpaid fees here. Now it says invoiced right now, so I made a mistake. And if you have an invoiced particular transaction, you can't actually add that to the summary. It's already in an invoice. So what I'll do is I'm going to go ahead and get rid of that invoice temporarily. And I'm going to void the invoice. Now, a good thing to know is voiding an invoice does not void the fees on a particular invoice. Anytime you make a transaction adjustment to something that exists in the invoice, or you make another invoice that includes one of those items, it's going to void the old invoice. So I still owe. Those fees are still going to be on my account. When I refresh, we'll see a voided status, and I still owe those $35.10. There is a regenerate button. I could regenerate this invoice. So let's say I slashed this price for some reason. My old invoice is no longer good. My new invoice will now be a different price. When I regenerate it, it'll reflect that. But back to the portion where we're skipping batch billing. We go to all transactions. We can either do payment here, which will include every single one that they owe, or we can select one and we can add unpaid fees into the summary. And so we're saving on transaction fees by grouping those and paying those all up front. So even if you don't use batch billing, you can still utilize this feature to reduce on those credit card fees. Okay, so those are the main ways we can go over it. I believe Johnny's fielding questions. I'm going to take a look at those in a second. And Ashley.
Yeah, we have a ton of questions. I feel like we could have gone for an hour at this point. I think Johnny's probably leaving some of these so we can just answer them out loud. So I'll ask them and you can answer them. How's that?
Sounds good.
Let's see. For the convenience fee, did you say we should set up a revenue category so we can keep track?
Yes, I definitely suggest building a revenue category for the convenience fees. You don't actually have to build one for it. But if I were to create one right here, um, I'll just call it CF. We can save these. And as soon as you've built the revenue category here, you can head over to where you build the convenience fee in the integrated payment section, and you'll be able to go down, enable that fee, and then you get a drop down here where you can select this. This lets you do the sales summary very easily when you go look at the summary overall or the revenue category by type to see how much you've earned in convenience fees. If you don't make one, you can still locate it because you're going to be able to search by the fee type, and the fee type is separate. It's convenience fee, so you could still total it without actually building a revenue category for it. It just makes it a little bit easier.
Awesome. Let's see. We've got a question. Do either one of our credit card processors differentiate between credit and debit cards? Some credit card processors can recognize the difference, which can eliminate the convenience fee for debit cards.
For online payments, the debit card is treated like a credit card. And so if you're using convenience fees, the debit card will get processed as if it was a credit card. So the convenience fee would apply to the debit.
Does the e-check get charged similar fees as credit debit cards do?
I do believe they get charged similar fees. I would suggest double checking with your payment provider specifically to look at the rates for their e-check charges versus their CC charges. But in general, they are less.
What would be an average savings if you batch billed every 5 days?
That one's going to vary very heavily on the club. And it really depends on how much the individual is selling and how much reoccurring individuals are coming to your club, right? So if you batched every 5 days, but your member base only shows up once a week, you're not really going to be saving anything because they show up once a week, they have one charge, you run the batch bill, and you only get hit with one charge. So that's going to vary heavily on the club. One of my suggestions might be to reach out to our Facebook admin community group for those who are using batch billing. And you can kind of discuss, or if some people are willing to discuss how much they've saved by utilizing batch billing for either reservations or point of sale. They could probably give you an idea, especially if they're a similar sized club.
What do you suggest to do for people who have unpaid invoices?
Unpaid invoices. So I would suggest, again, with the aged fees report, and honestly, you can use the batch billing section where you have statuses here. You'll be able to see and filter by status. So we talked a little bit about the past due setting that you can set 0 days, 5 days, or you can just filter to see anybody who's pending payment and kind of locate or track down what's going on there. So anything with pending payment, right? And when we run our batch billing, we see they have payment profiles on file. We can go ahead and collect. So as the admins, we can go in and say, hey, we're going to collect all of these fees. And then we're following up with individuals who, for some reason, had a payment profile decline. Maybe you allow members to delete their payment profile, or maybe they switched it at some point and the credit card is no longer good. We suggest reaching out or following up with those particular individuals. You'll notice we have a notify button here on the invoices section. So we can very much go to everybody who's pending payment and hit a notify and email those members. So we can contact them, we can give them a heads up. So courtesy email, maybe one or two, and then either following up with a phone call. In cases where you really don't get anybody responding to you, that's a suggestion I might say suspending a particular membership. So if they're ignoring you, coming in or dodging you, you can suspend the membership to essentially force a conversation if they wish to continue playing or attending your facility.
It's really good. Do you have thoughts on using business Venmo to reduce the fees? They have lower convenience fees and a much lower transaction rate. Well, I want to speak to this before Oswin gives his view. So currently at my club here in St. Augustine, we are constantly trying to make it a very frictionless way for people to register. Well, first sign up, register, pay, and then get on the court. So if you are using an outside vendor that's not integrated, then you are risking a couple of things. Number one, if you don't take the payment through CourtReserve, then there's no skin in the game for that client to show up at your facility. Number two, you have to have two different ways of addressing the revenue that you're bringing into the club. So if you use, payments and transactions through CourtReserve, then I'm able to go in and do all of my accounting out of CourtReserve. So I can attest to who's paid, who's not paid, etc. If you use a third party, then you're just going to have to constantly do that manual process of figuring out who's paid and not. And I would say, too, what you guys haven't seen yet is that we just released something called public booking. It's now in beta. It actually takes away the friction of someone outside having to create that profile. So it's an easy way, almost like a Resi or an open table, to book your court or sign up for your event. We've got over 20 clubs in beta right now, and we're going to be pushing this out, and it's going to revolutionize the way that people do things at your club. So stay tuned. And I'll go back to you, Oswin, to kind of give your thoughts on using a business Venmo to reduce fees.
Yeah. So you can definitely use other forms of payment. In CourtReserve, we allow you to use this other field in your integrated payment section. And what this does is it lets me go through and as the admin or front desk staff, when somebody's making a payment outside, I can of course mark this as other. So when I'm marking something as other, I do have to keep, like Ashley said, I kind of have to keep track farther outside of my own CourtReserve system and my payment processor to make sure I'm doing my accounting right. But that's not to say that you can't do it. I've seen orgs operate in cash and exclusively other, and you can save on transaction fees if you're marking it that way. It does involve a lot more manual work. It may involve a lot more adding particular notes, but somebody comes in and offers you a large portion, and they're, hey, I'm willing to pay via Venmo, I'm willing to pay via something else. You can run that payment, mark it as other. And then be able to pull or look upon that transaction within CourtReserve later. It'll just state as an other type of payment.
All right. Well, that is all we have for today. I hope that you guys got so much out of this presentation. Thanks to Oswin and Johnny for, helping us learn more about how we can save fees. We did just make an incredible hire at CourtReserve. Her name is Tessa. She's our new VP of payments, and she's going to be working with our credit processing companies to even make it a better way for you guys to save. And so don't forget, this is the Lunch and Learn. Go back out and sign up for the next one next week, and we'll see you there. Have a great day, everybody.